Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We've had some absolutely amazing sessions across this week, Stress Awareness Week. If you haven't caught those sessions, you will be able to look at them on our YouTube page, and we've also got them on our LinkedIn page as well. So I'm really delighted to introduce this session today, which is all about creating psychological, safe and healthy workplaces through mentoring. And we've got a really fantastic panel here today, and I'm going to just ask Karen McDonnell to just come on as I deliver this introduction, just to give you some background to this. So Karen is the Occupational Safety and Health Policy Advisor for ROSPA, and ROSPA and Karen have been a huge support to the work that we've been undertaking within OneWISH. And very early on, we came together with L'Oreal's Safe at Work, Safe at Home programme, which is a partnership with ROSPA, between ROSPA and L'Oreal. And we, alongside myself as well, we created a leading health and safety programme whereby we women from around the world could apply for this program, and they'd undertake a day's worth of training with me, and we actually created quite a structured mentoring program through that. And actually we now have a host of alumni, don't we, Karen?
We do.
And it's been I mean, from my perspective, it's exceeded my expectations in respect of what we did at the start. And ROSPA have covered this entire journey and promoting women and underrepresented groups within the industry in a variety of ways. And we're going to see more, aren't we? So I don't know if you just want to have just sort of say something about the programme and, you know, how it's, you know, from your perspective before we start the debate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from a ROSPA perspective, it's been invigorating for our work to be able to reach people around the world through this programme, which is really based on the connection between people, which is such an important factor in how we all move forward in terms of our psychological safety. So the connections between people, I've said it before, are very much the things that sustain people in difficult times. And we've certainly just come through some difficult times. And indeed, that programme was launched. The Leading Safely programme, supported by the Mentoring Intervention, was launched in 2019, I think.
Yeah.
From there, I mean, we've been overwhelmed with interest in the programme itself. I don't know, Louise, do you want to explain how people get to become part of the programme?
Yeah, so I mean, it is a big call out. So we're continuing the programme into 2023, and it's basically to keep an eye out on the OneWISH platform. Certainly follow me on LinkedIn, Karen on LinkedIn, and we'll be promoting this going forward. So basically we put a call out to women around the world who have aspirations to move into leadership roles within health and safety, and have perhaps been experiencing some challenges around where they are now, and we just ask that people sort of submit a case for themselves, I guess, and you know, myself and Karen work through that. But and then after the sessions, because I've spent a day with everybody, we use our connections to match people to mentors, and that's where the real value has come, isn't it, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the start of 2019, I had two words in my head, and it was about visible and connected. And this programme does exactly those two things. You know, it makes people who perhaps haven't been visible within OSH world, because it can be quite difficult to become more accessible, more recognised. But this programme certainly is doing that for the people who've gone through the programme to date. We encourage people to write articles, do blogs, we do encourage people to use more social media so that we can see that strength that the number of people coming through the programme adds to the overall visibility of women within our shared OSH world. So visible and connected with the two words. And I think it's only right to say that when we put out the invitation for people to engage with being part of this panel today, the panel was committed within a few hours. So and it is about also supporting people to do things that they might just have felt was a little bit out with their comfort zone.
100%.
However, we've seen phenomenal developments in individuals and their individual roles and how they express themselves over that period of time. And the fabulous thing about the programme is that connection will always be there. I mean, I think as we go into the conversation about mentoring and what the mentoring is like, the mentoring is very person-centred. So it's what you need at that time from that mentor. But those connections and this network that we're establishing through the programme won't abate. You know, the energy that's there will continue because the visibility will enhance.
And I think it's fair to say as well is that being involved in a mentor programme is you get as much if you know, the mentee, the mentor, there's a mutual piece there. And also if anybody is looking at this stream and perhaps you're somebody who feels that you can offer some time as a mentor, please do get in touch as well. So by all means, put something in the chat box. I'm going to be monitoring the LinkedIn feeds as well for questions as we go through the session. But if you feel that you have, you know, and we would like mentors from any sector and anywhere. And you know, you don't have to be a woman to mentor our women coming through. So you know, it's absolutely, you know, open to everybody. But and also this is just a quick opportunity for me to say that Karen's been a huge supporter of mine. So personally, you know, Karen's been there for me, and I think it just shows the power of our connections to support one another as well. So I'm just going to publicly say that too, Karen.
Well, thanks very much. Thank you. I'm just going to mention the other thing that we've been doing, just so that if you're listening in and thinking, well, I'm on the other side of the world, how is this going to work? You know, we have created little pods of mentors that are in the same time zone as people, so that all has been thought through. So don't let where you're located be a barrier to engaging with the programme.
Absolutely. So I'm going to switch my camera off and I'm going to hand over to you now, Karen. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat box, and I'll be coming in a bit later on in the session to pose any questions.
Perfect. Thanks very much indeed. So I think we'll start off. I'll ask our panel to pop their cameras on and we can do our introductions. Ideally, you know, if everyone, each of you, and I'm going to start top left and work along and down and back again. So I thought if everyone could just give a short reflection on your current role, how important psychologically safe and healthy workplaces are to you. And just, you know, we can have a personal and an organisational take on this, because we are whole people with whole lives. So I think that's also really important in terms of engaging on this topic this morning. So can we start with Anne, please?
Good morning, Karen. Thank you. Yes, well, it's been a bit of a journey for me too with you, hasn't it? I'm just looking back through my notes. 20 years ago, I did my managing safely training with you in ROSPA, and yeah, my current role is as Health and Wellbeing Officer with Somerset Association of Local Councils, and I'm funded by Public Health to reduce health inequalities by supporting and training councils in the wider determinants of health. So I've moved a little bit away from health and safety, but it's still treating people, it's basically implementing the whole person, whole life and what matters to you conversations. So I'm also working with the NHS as well in delivering that training in the NHS. So that's where I am right now. But creating psychologically safe workplaces is essential, because I've got lived experience of mental health challenges and have suffered discrimination, and really struggled to come to terms with working and, you know, managing whole life in terms of managing a family and balancing my career as well. And I found that the support and mentoring that I've benefited from you and from many other people throughout my career has really kept me going, because at times it's been a real struggle. So feeling safe being at work, which you are at work for what, 8 hours a day, if you're working in, you know, regular hours, it's really important to have that balance.
Thanks very much indeed, Anne. And the reason that I thought you'd be a fabulous addition to this panel is where you've now moved in terms of your working life, because you're now in that situation where that conversation, you know, we talk a lot about having the right conversation at the right time, but you're actually in that world now. So I think there's a lot to be learned from understanding more about your work as we go through the session this morning. And next is Catherine. Kate, hi.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, Catherine Coleman. I'm the head of health, safety and environment for a vocational college, so 16 to 18-year-olds and plus adults in rural Midlands in the UK. We cover all industries from agriculture to motor vehicle, performing arts, sport, hair and beauty. So a wide range of industries all in one big pot of a college campus. And for me, it's all about, in my role, setting students up for best practice. So when they go into employment in the future, they are doing things in a healthy and safe way, and it becomes norm for them that they're just adopting it. You know, we know lots of different parts of industries, you know, health and safety might be at different levels. And so if we can set them free from their education to their employers, happy to question and challenge on health and safety and expect a certain standard. And that's where I feel like I've done my job. So lots of work with students and with staff as well, some who've come from working in the industry for a long time and now have come into education and changing their mindset that, you know, things need to be done in a certain way and have engaging conversations, rather than seeing health and safety as holding up the job and stopping them from doing what they want, seeing it more as it's part of education and going home healthily and in the same condition that they came to work in the morning. For me, the programme was fantastic. I think many of you could probably relate that it's quite a lonely job being in health and safety sometimes, and you know, you might just be the only person in the organisation who's responsible for it. So finding this group and having these regular catch-ups that we do, and going through that process with everyone has been really, really refreshing for me, and yeah, a great position to be in.
That's fabulous. Thanks very much indeed. Danny, how are you today?
Hello, Karen. I'm very good, thank you. So I'm very happy to be with you all. I'm in Brazil right now, so I work here, and I'm a health and safety engineer. I work for a global packaging company, and I'm responsible for health, safety, and well-being as well. So I have been learning a lot with this group, and I feel very safe to speak up and to raise questions when I have it. So, and I believe psychological health and safe workplaces are essential for everything we do. So every OHS initiatives. So it's very important for people to feel free to speak up when they have a question or when they want to ask for help. So this is very important for occupational health and safety initiatives. So it's a foundation, in my opinion, it's a foundation for every initiative we do. So thank you for the opportunity today.
No, at all. Thank you. Nikki.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So my name is Nikki Amiaka. I'm head of operational risk at Gore Street Capital, a private equity firm. I think my answer to your question is a little bit more personal. But before I answer your question, I think for the purpose of the audience, I would just like to explain a little bit about what we mean by psychological safety. And I think, you know, psychological safety is when it's a shared belief when people in a team believe that they feel safe to take interpersonal risks. And what do we mean by that? It means people feel safe to speak up, to challenge, to raise concerns, and to make suggestions, and not feel that they'll be punished or humiliated. So now taking that back to me answering this question. So in my job now, it's a senior role. It's with a private equity firm. But prior to that, I was working as an engineer at lead level role. I was working briefly in the chemicals industry and mostly oil and gas industry. And then I was working for listed companies, and now I work for a regulated company. So for me, because of that transition of moving roles from an engineer to a senior role and also changing industries, it's very important for me to feel psychologically safe, to feel that I can speak up, to feel that I can raise up my hand and say, this is a new industry to me. It's financial services is different for me. I don't know much about it. I'm here to learn. And also for me to bring my suggestions to them. And it's for me, it's been very important in my current role as a result to feel psychologically safe. And I honestly feel that I feel psychologically safe where I work right now. And my team's awesome, my company is awesome. So that's my perspective on the question.
No, I think that's a really useful insight. I mean, you have to feel that you've got that position where you can express yourself in a way
yes,
that will understand, and they'll, you can, that difference between hearing things and listening to things, so you've got people who are going to listen to what you're saying and interpret and perhaps understand enough about you that they can then modify how they are in relation to whatever piece of work is being undertaken within the team. So I've just checked to see if Belinda's able to join us. So hopefully if she does join us, we can let her introduce herself at that particular moment in time. So I think that I've got 2 or 3 questions that we don't have to get through all of them. We can just have a conversation as it stands. I'm quite comfortable with that. So I think that the first thing, thanks indeed, Nikki, there for just setting the scene in terms of what psychologically safe means for you. In terms of creating the opportunity to have the conversation about the value that having these psychologically safe and healthy workplaces adds. Have we got any sort of personal insights or organisational perspectives on that, about how you create that condition to have that conversation about being psychologically safe and healthy? And I'd like to go to Catherine first, please.
Thank you. Well, it's quite an interesting subject, isn't it? That I think traditionally, well, certainly in my sector, it's largely been an HR conversation about mental health. It's people going to HR if it gets to a crisis point. And health and safety, I think we've talked before in our kind of coffee catch-ups that we have as groups of mentees. We focus more on the safety and not so much on the health, just because it's a big remit, isn't it? And I've noticed, and certainly for my work, having those conversations with people and talking, just chatting. I think something the pandemic has really helped with is having more use of Teams and Zoom, which means that people are more able to catch up informally wherever they are in the world or in their business, and have those informal conversations and start talking about why, if you feel safe mentally, you will be safe in work. You're more likely to be aware of risks, and you're more likely to be more productive and take less time off, and understanding the mindset of everyone within the organization. One thing that my mentor said to me was, it's changing the language for different levels of the business, and appreciating that different levels of the business have different stresses, whether you're at the top or at the bottom or wherever you are, and acknowledging that, and adapting that discussion as around what works for them best. So I think we had a conversation before about finance. If people are worried about finance, they work in the finance department, then actually altering the language to talk about their mental health or being psychologically safe, with that as a backdrop, it works better. You get more engagement with people when you apply it to their area of work, I find. And it's just becoming a much bigger thing across industries, isn't it? HSE is much more involved in thinking about being psychologically safe, and that is filtering down now to us on the shop floor doing the work, and noticing that if you feel safe, and you feel happy in your work, you are going to be more, you're going to take fewer risks and be more aware of what you and your team are doing rather than looking after yourself.
I think that the emphasis on self-care is so important. It's quite easy to have a running order for your day and just keep going no matter what's happening around about you. But sometimes, you know, through the pandemic, Ross, where we were encouraging people to pause, reflect and reset. And I started off, we were using that as an organizational sort of pause, reflect, reset. And then I thought, well, that each of us should be doing that every day or as frequently as is needed. So you sort of reset your expectations, you sort of reset your boundaries, extend your comfort zone, whatever that is, but it's taking that moment to reflect on your own person.
And I think we're so keen to focus on the negatives that we've achieved. And, you know, I think that a lot of health and safety professionals came through the pandemic feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, not really appreciating that they'd maybe kept their business operational, they'd kept the building open, they'd kept it, you know, they'd not had outbreaks of COVID in their employees, you know, and we tend to just come out and go, oh goodness, well, I've not done any of the other work I was supposed to do during the pandemic because I've just been focusing on COVID. I've not, you know, now got a raft of policies and general day-to-day things that I haven't done, and really not, and you know, not looking at all the great stuff that we all did through those 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Danny, can I bring you in here for some reflections from your perspective?
Yeah, and when we talk about psychological safety, we are talking about health and safety, but also we are talking about high performance teams. So, and how this team work together to deliver results. So, I have working with the leadership team, and also I have created some toolbox talk. So explaining what is psychological safety, what is the importance, what are the elements about psychological safety, and why is it so important to talk about it and to have safe space to be who you are. So it's working really well because people are speaking up, are sharing their experience, are sharing mistakes, and it's also about diversity and inclusion as well. So I think it's going really well, and we have some interns that are running some open discussions. So instead of having the safety meetings, we are having also psychological safe spaces to share experiences. So that's great because when we look at the sports as well, we can see some examples of psychological safety. And when we look at what happened with Simone Biles, for example, she feel free to express what was going on and how she was feeling, and to share that with the leader and with the team. So we always have this kind of discussion, and I think it's working well now.
And thanks very much indeed. And your perspectives on this, Nikki?
I love to be honest. I haven't done a lot on creating an environment for having psychologically safe conversations. It's still very new to me in the context of mentoring. So I love to be honest, but I have taken away lessons from being on this panel, from working with Ayush. And one thing I think I would do, from the example of Danielle, thinking of a toolbox talk that I could embed in my company so that we can all have conversations about how we can feel psychologically safe at work. So I'll be coming to you, Danielle, on how to do that for my company.
Yeah, good.
That's perfect. And I think that's a really good illustration about it, because we all are at different parts of our understanding in relation to psychologically safe and healthy workplaces. I mean, if you think, if I reflect back 20 years on, you know, about people we didn't talk about, you know, that was the elephant in the room. Didn't talk about it. It was kind of like, and it was, and probably as women, you know, that whole thing about, I mean, Catherine, you said about, you know, you've got all sorts of demands on your time. And it is that thing about wanting to be present in the workplace, to be making the difference you want to make, to be developing yourself. But you've all this other stuff to do as well, you know. So I think there is that sort of element on it, very much so in terms of people sort of speaking up. I mean, I love when we have the coffee catch-ups, because part of the programme is to meet. We've endeavoured to do it routinely and just have a chat, you know. And the first couple, you know, when we like Dawn Thompson Louise and I are in on these sessions as well. And you've got all these phenomenal people thinking they're not good enough. You know,
I've been speaking up about this for the last 15 years, Karen. You know,
Yeah.
you've heard my many rants about this. I'm sorry, it is a rant, because stigma is the big elephant in the room. And as women, we have double the pressure on us not to appear weak. And it's okay not to be okay. And it was only because I was working in health and safety and so passionate about keeping other people safe that I wasn't keeping myself safe, because I was hiding my own struggles. And the only options I had in the workplace I was in, which was an academic institution, it was a university, was to go to occupational health or go to HR. And that was only if you're in crisis mode. So a psychologically safe workplace is somewhere where you can talk about the challenges you're having and not feel that you're burdening anybody, not feel stigmatized, and actually just have that conversation. And I don't know if you can see, I'm wearing an orange button at the moment, it's badge. And here in Somerset, we've got this to talk about suicide awareness. Now, if anybody in a workplace felt they had suicidal thoughts or anything like that, a lot of workplaces wouldn't know how to deal with that. They'd make a crisis out of it. But actually, what I ended up having to do in the workplace I was in was set up my own peer support team. We brought in psychologists, we brought in really amazing people to train a team of people from all different levels in the organisation. So research assistants, technicians, academics, admin people, and we trained them just to listen, just to be non-judgmental listeners, and to be able to signpost. So if something came in the conversation that the person was needing to get extra support, they could signpost them. That was all they were doing. So they weren't counsellors, and that opened up so many cans of worms in the organisation, because bullying, all the other things came out that people felt unable to talk about before then. So that's where those conversations started. And things like that in a workplace can really help, because you're talking to your peers.
I think that the insights that we've had, that developing a toolkit that enhances your understanding, but also develops the concept within your higher performing teams, as you mentioned, Danny. And then that whole piece about, what do I do with information? If I have this conversation within the workplace, what do I do with what I'm told? But that not just knowing where to signpost to, I think, is fundamentally important.
And it's taken the fear out of it as well, because if people hear something, sometimes all the people want you to do is hear. We just want you to listen. Don't expect you to take action. Just being heard is really such a wonderful thing for people. Just feeling that they've been heard, because they might not be heard in their home life.
Yeah,
just being heard, that could be the key to keeping somebody psychologically safe.
And it's signposting in a healthy way as well, isn't it? Rather than it being traditionally through a disciplinary route, or someone being off sick, which doesn't always help everybody to then be removed from the organisation. And looking at the people, rather than, in education, it's very much focused on the student's best experience, and then potentially the staff get left behind. And always with a significant product, the focus is on getting that out, rather than looking at the people who are shaping that in the background. So yeah, healthy signposting is fantastic.
But that's why I did it, Catherine, because we had a student disability committee that had 50 members, 50 people sitting around a table, and in a committee with 50 people in is not effective, in my opinion. I've sat on many committees and no, 50 people don't take action. And that was purely to look after student well-being. And I said, well, what about staff well-being? And there wasn't one. There was a staff university safety committee, but there wasn't a staff well-being committee. And that's why I created this, the See Me pledge, got the university to sign the See Me pledge, and in Scotland, this is a Scottish thing, and set up this peer support team. Because that, and I think those conversations about, we need to be psychologically safe. You can just talk about it regularly. It's not, I've got a problem. It's like, oh, this is concerning me. Can I talk about it?
Yeah. I think the See Me programme, I think it's about, are you okay?
Yeah.
And then it's that pause, and asking, are you really okay?
Yeah, asked twice.
Be something, you know, that whole piece. It could be anything from people who've been punctual, focused, to then being a bit late getting to work or whatever it is, you know. And it's about knowing your teams well enough to be able to have that conversation, say, are you okay? Are you really okay? Let's just take 5 minutes just to try and have a conversation about how you're feeling, and then signposting people. Or sometimes, as we've all said, you know, it's just that moment to say, you know, I think reflecting back on the pandemic and people working from home, where you'd been used to being in amongst a team. I always have a smile when I talk about this, because I'm sure I'm a huge distraction to my team on a daily basis, you know. But I like being beside my team. I like taking that moment to go in and, you know, you just sort of can have a chat about various things whilst doing huge amounts of work, without any doubt, that's for sure, without any shadow of a doubt. But that whole piece about use your voice, I think, is fundamentally important. And then Rosie Russell, who's one of our mentors on the programme, spoke at a ROSPA webinar a couple of months ago. And the comment that was made was, I've never met anybody who wasn't good enough. And I loved that. I thought it was T-shirt material. I thought it was badge material, because it's true. It's absolutely true. And I think that's the strength of this programme, is, you know, bringing people together, albeit virtually at the moment. Hopefully we'll get together in the same space at some point in time. But it's that whole piece about the mentoring programme and how it's actually making us more visible and more connected. So I wondered if it might be possible to have a chat about what the mentoring element's been like for everybody that's been on the programme, and again, and some reflections from yourself in terms of, you know, where you are now in terms of this different sphere that you're working in, but the value that kind of work adds. Because I think that, you know, like things ebb and flow, I think we could do with some of what you're doing back in OSH world. So if we could get some reflections on how the mentoring programme has worked, and just so that the listeners can understand that it's very fluid, you know, it's something that a conversation you can enter into, and there are teams of people there who can also support you to move forward. So I was going to speak to Belinda first. Belinda's not been able to join us for some reason. So Nikki, can I ask you to go first? Is that okay?
Yes. I think to answer this question, I hope I don't make everybody laugh by saying this, but I'm generally a self-motivated person and someone who's goal-oriented, and I consider myself generally focused on my career. And so I never really thought very much about looking for a mentor or going through a mentoring program, apart from when I was trying to become a chartered engineer and I needed a mentor. But then when I was thinking of moving from being an engineer to into a senior management role, I struggled. I thought my self-motivation and all my focus and everything didn't seem to work for me, and I needed a helping hand. And I think that was when I came across the IOSH Leading Safely program on LinkedIn, which I applied for. It was also at the same time, I remember that I'd met Malcolm at an Institution of Chemical Engineers conference back in 2018. And then I had been following him, stalking him on LinkedIn. And then I thought, oh, he's been through the same career path as me. He's a chemical engineer, worked as an engineer, and then moved into senior management and leadership role. And so I contacted him, very lovely guy, and he helped me, and we're paired up as part of the IOSH mentoring program. And there are two ways that I've been helped, both from a IOSH point of view and also from my current job perspective. So I'll start with the IOSH one. So when I met Malcolm, he helped me with, he works first on my CV. He helped me with, formatting it in a way that's ready for a senior management role. He did mock interviews for me to try and help me with how I project myself as an interview for senior management role. Just general encouragement, support, and advice on how to transition from being that engineer into a senior manager. And also, he recommended me to recruitment agents, to some people in his network, which was very good. And within 3 months of me being mentored by Malcolm, I got my current role now as head of operational risk. So that was one way that the mentoring program has helped me. The second way a mentoring program has helped me is in my current job now. I would call that like an induction stroke onboarding mentoring, which I got from my CEO, Alex. And he made sure that when I started that role, I don't think I showed it, but I was a bit nervous, anxious. I was thinking, I hope I can do this job. And he made sure he met me once a week and said to me, oh, my doors are open, come talk to me if you need any help. He also spoke to my peers, other heads of departments, and he said, Nikki is experienced, but she's new to this industry. If she's got any questions, please answer all her questions, help her. And I think that was really good. It removed any fear. It made me feel that, everyone's cheering me on and interested in me succeeding in this role. And it helped me settle into the role. So for me, those are the two ways that I would say, mentoring program has helped me. So what I would like the audience to take out of this experience is, if you're like me, thinking I'm self-motivated, I'm goal-oriented, I don't need anyone to help. It's nice to be mentored. It's nice to get help. There's really, and the network people that are in that position you're trying to get to can offer you is just great. That's all I can say. And for those that are looking for mentors but are shy to contact people, please, there are so many nice people out there like Malcolm, Karen, Dawn, and everyone on this panel. Please get in touch on LinkedIn. Contact them, see if they match in, if they're at the level you want to be, or if they're doing what you want to do, and contact them. And honestly, people are nice; they will help you. So that's all I just want to say about this question.
No, that's absolutely perfect. Thanks very much indeed. Catherine, yourself.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, can I come in as the polar opposite of Nikki, really? Because I've definitely, from the point of view of, I'm not self-motivated to look after myself and my development. I'm just very much, what are we doing at work and how am I doing that? And, am I good enough, to come back to your point that, that we all are. So when I applied for the Leading Safely course, I did it almost like pressing the button like that, going, I don't really dare. No, I don't think I should do anything to promote myself. And then when I was accepted on it and then learned about the mentoring program, I kept on looking around going, I think they might look at LinkedIn for me and go, no, actually, you're not who we were looking for. So I felt completely kind of blown away to be allowed to come into this network of amazing women and learn about all the fantastic things they're doing. And it really has rubbed off on me and made me think more about what I'm doing, which then I pass down the line to other people and other women in my network. And I haven't used the mentoring as much, for specific reasons. And Graham, if he's listening or out there, he would say, no, you really haven't. But he's always, we had an amazing first conversation, which just really set the tone of where I wanted to look next in my career. And so it's just that underlying, I think I said on a previous coffee catch up, it was a bit like a North Star. You always felt that was in the background, or it was guiding you, whichever way, whether you use it day to day or not for a couple of months, or only come to it a couple of times in that year or whatever. It's just always there. And it's been really helpful to me to be that backbone of thinking, right, well, I have got that network and I can have those conversations, and I do feel confident that I can be successful in my industry. And so it has massively changed. I wouldn't change my life, sounds a bit dramatic, but it absolutely has, in terms of me thinking about my career goals rather than just doing a job. It's actually, I can be better for myself and therefore then for the industry, and represent women successfully in health and safety, because they know there's lots of us out there, turns out, which I didn't really appreciate.
Perfect. Thanks very much. What about yourself, Danny?
The mentoring was like an open space to share experience and to have a wider view about some situations we have discussed. And also we were able to see things from another perspective. And I think this is very important. And my mentor, Rosie, she was absolutely great. So she helped me a lot to know how to positioning myself in some situation, because sometimes we have this kind of difficulty in our jobs. So I'm a coordinator now, and she helped me in how to position and how to express myself and how to use the right words when I'm talking to the leadership team or with the operational team. So that was important. And when we talk about psychological safety, we are not talking about introversion or extroversion. So we could talk about it in that space as well. So I think you have done a great match between me and Rosie. Thank you.
We have you put a lot of thought into how to put the mentoring pairs together, and in the main everything works swimmingly, but each pattern is quite different, and I think that's already come over in the conversation. What about yourself, Anne?
I've just been looking back through my career, and I forget how many people have supported me throughout it. And I started off as a scientist, and I did the Lead In Safely in 2002. That's 20 years ago. And I was working as a health and safety manager. And at that time, I started as a trade union rep, and basically, because I caused a bit of trouble, they created this role as health and safety manager for me. So I was the first one in the organisation to be the department of health and safety manager. And as the other managers came in, because I was involved with my local Irish branch, we supported each other. So we effectively mentored each other, growing our different roles throughout that organisation. And the IOSH committee that I worked with, including yourself, Karen, and going on to manage IOSH Scotland, that collaboration of all the IOSH branches in Scotland, that was an incredible opportunity to mentor each other, because we were working together, weren't we? We were collaborating together really well. And then do I went through the SVQ, which is equivalent NVQ route, to get my qualification. And so my tutors, Liz and Alan, and again yourself, Karen, you've come in and out of my life all the time, helped me immensely because I was getting my qualification whilst I was working and building that role up. So that was really helpful to me to have this, mentoring to help support me to develop this role. And then had a big life change in 2013, where I basically had to leave Scotland and relocate, and effectively juggle part-time work and building a consultancy. And I had some really incredible mentors that supported me through that process. Again, Karen and Liz Young were immensely supportive, because at that time I was applying for my chartered fellowship of IOSH, and I don't know how we managed it, but somehow in the turmoil of that year, which was a very difficult year personally for me with lots of family things going on, managed to get my chartered fellowship of IOSH. So as part of that, you do give back. So I've personally mentored a few people through their fellowships, and also served on the Professional Standards Committee for IOSH, which again was another mentoring experience, because Tim Briggs, who chaired that, amazing person, he supported my career very well through my consultancy. And and you just give and receive, don't you? In different stages of your career, you give advice and you support people and you receive. And through the various professional committees I've been on for institution ISTR, which is Institute of Safety Technology and Research, and IOSH, there's been lots of people throughout the career that have either supported or given me guidance and advice, or I've supported them. So I think it's just it's a natural cycle, isn't it? You just do it. In the work I do now, basically in 2018, I decided that I'd had enough of traveling, because I needed my family, I wanted to support my family, and it didn't support my lifestyle, the traveling and going seeing clients across the country. So I took some time out, created some space, and focused on what brought me joy, which was being creative. So I went back to art college, and it was really, really good to take that space and reflect, and realise that in health and safety, you're focusing on preventing things going wrong. So you're focusing on not making mistakes, and people are scared to say they've made a mistake or they've broken, not complied with a rule. But in art, you celebrate your mistakes, you work with them, you learn from them. And it was such a revelation to me, because I'd had almost 20 years of this, and it was so good to get that spaciousness and really rethink how I approached work and conversations. So my career now has moved into the health aspect, and it's about asking people, okay, so where are we now? How do we accept where we are now, and how do we work with it, and how do we learn from it, and what matters to you? And it really enriches any conversation. So, any conversation, if things aren't going right, or you're stuck, or you've got any blocks, it's like, okay, where are we now? How do we accept ourselves for where we are now? No guilt, no shame. Let's move forward and see what we can learn from it, and use our skills and our experiences, our connections, our social circle, Maslow, to build and grow from it. Because no tree, there's a saying about trees, is that a tree without stress, that hasn't been subjected to stress, doesn't have strong roots. So our, trauma-informed conversations as well, which is very key. Thinking about from what you've experienced, that's great, but it's made you where you are today, and how do you move forward? So yeah.
No, I think that's that whole person-centered thing is fundamentally important, and that taking that time to see where you are. I mean, we talk about in terms of benchmarking, we benchmark our organizations, we exchange information, but it is important just to reflect on where we are as individuals at any particular, that I think when we had one of our most recent catch-ups, somebody said about the importance of checking in on yourself. And I thought that was an interesting concept. So I've been trying to do it a little bit more than I probably historically have done, because invariably there's always lots to be done, which I'm always pretty happy about. What I'm going to do just now is I'm going to ask, so we've had our reflections on the mentoring, where mentoring fits and how it's worked for us. I'm also I'm constantly mentored, I'm constantly learning, and the Rospa L'Oreal women have been a constant source of new ideas and new ways of thinking about things. And that coffee catch-up actually is a pause, reflect and reset for the Rospa team as well, so very interesting. And I know that we've got one mentor in the space today, who's Malcolm Staves. And I was going to ask Malcolm if he wanted to pop in and just give us some insights on what it's been like to be a mentor within this programme, Malcolm.
Hello, everybody. It's been an eye-opener for me. I mean, I think even being a mentor, it's a two-way thing as well. We learn just as much from the mentees that maybe the mentors learn as well. I've now mentored two women. Nikki, of course, who's here in front of you. And just to let you know, she's not the easiest person in the world to mentor, because she is very ambitious, she's very direct, she knows what she wants. But it's been a fabulous journey for me, and a little bit different. And then there was Bobby before, who needed to go forward. She just had a new boss that was very imposing and all the rest of it. And I saw the other side. I mean, I've worked in health and safety for a while, and I come from it from a man's perspective. I've seen the other side a little bit more, if I can. I don't know whether that's politically correct to say. And sometimes I'm almost ashamed of the way, sort of women have to fight to be heard and sometimes to move forward. And I just want to see that change, because, and this is not the question you asked me, but I'm going to say this anyhow, right? And everybody knows me. The future of health and safety and well-being is more empathy, it's more collaboration, it's more teamwork. And we have a very diverse set of people that we have to protect. And I think at the end of the day, we need to be as diverse. And empathy very often isn't a male trait, I'm going to say that. And I think to get that balance, I've changed through my mentorship. I'm more open to psychological safety. I mean, when people are coming up to me with ideas and it's not the same as an idea as me, now I'm listening to it. I'm thinking for 5 or 10 minutes and saying, you know, something, that's a really good idea. You know, so I'm on a journey with everybody else. I'm being mentored by Nikki in a sense, and also by Bobby before. So I'm getting just as much out of this. So for me, being a mentor is just such a superb experience, and I would recommend it to anybody out there to, you know, come forward, put your name forward, and join us, because what we're doing is transformational. We're creating the future of our profession. So this is awesome.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and we're encouraging people to see the breadth that you can extend health, safety, and well-being to. You know, it's actually within a gospel context, I've talked about weaving threads together, and that's what these conversations do. They start to connect pieces, and it's almost like going back to your art piece, Annie mentioned a few minutes ago. You know, it's about, you know, like Rospa's policy work is like a golden thread through what we do, and then we're weaving it together so that more people understand our language. You know, so we talk about whole people with whole lives, and we have been doing that for, gosh, a number of years now. So we can introduce topics underneath that umbrella that a more traditional one, we're going to talk about health and safety, might not have been as engaging. You know, so it's about the language and making our world more accessible as a consequence. I mean, does anyone have any sort of comments they'd like to make? I was going to bring Louise in just as a so we've got a few minutes left, you know, just to have a conversation about, you know, where we think we can go next with the programme, what's likely happening. And you've got your hand up.
I just want to say that you know, so the work I'm doing now is not strictly health and safety, but it is well-being. And you know, I really try and get people to talk about the wider determinants of health, and good work is one of those 6 key parts of being what makes us well. Good work is essential as good housing, access to food, nutrition, transport, all those things. Good work, you know, this is what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's what is good work. Good work isn't just about not being injured, it's about being psychologically safe as well. Feeling valued and respected.
Yeah, the element of fair work as well, you know, the sort of fairness of work, and the fact that work isn't fair if people are going home harmed by what they've been doing on any particular day. I remember when I was at the school, you weren't allowed to use the word bad, you know, so there's good work. Is there bad? Well, there is bad work, but it's not a very expressive term, is it? You know, so it is about understanding all these elements and having the right conversation. I mean, I think it was Danny that mentioned, you know, that, you know, being able to speak to different people within the organisation. I think, Catherine, you picked up on that as well. You know, that there is, there's a language or terminology that we can use to open the door on all sorts of topics relating to this psychologically safe and healthy workplace piece. I mean, Louise, have you got any final comments in relation to what we've discussed this morning?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to say that I'm so proud of this group of people. You know, it's like when Malcolm and I sort of came together, and Malcolm, if you haven't seen Malcolm's introduction of how that all happened, have a look. But I've just, you know, something, when you bring diverse teams together in the right kind of way and allow people space to be creative, and this has exceeded the whole, you know, what we've created around OneWISH has exceeded my expectations massively. And you know, I think then, you know, I'm constantly thinking, and my mind works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, is what next. And I think this whole piece, and I was listening to what you were saying, Anne, about art being creative. You know, I am a very creative person. So one of the things, Karen, I don't know if you were in council when I talked about it, is how people's minds work. There's a whole science between whether people are left-brained, very technically minded, or they're right-brained engaged, which is kind of more creative. And I think in terms of health and safety, because we've always seen it as a compliance issue in the past, we've got this kind of rigid feel about what we do. But I strongly believe when we engage both sides of our minds and become more creative and allow ourselves the space to make mistakes, because there's, in health and safety, there's an awful lot that has to be rigid, that has to happen. If fire alarm goes off, you've got to react to that fire alarm. But actually, there's a lot more to what we do that can be much more creative. And it's allowing ourselves space to kind of to be able to make mistakes occasionally and learn and adapt and keep adapting and keep learning and take off the chains of compliance, if you like. So and I think this program and the work that we're doing in OneWIsh is powering the profession to be more like that. And I think, you know, we're at this moment in time. You know, we talk about human capital. We're talking about EDI is so fundamental, you know, inclusion, harnessing diversity in our workplaces. If we're not creating that kind of transformation, we're not moving forward. So yeah, I mean, the sessions this week have been amazing, and I think, you know, this group and doing what you're doing and talking about what you're doing and being visible, because if you can see it, you can be it, is a massively exciting time.
I think I was just when you said there about, you know, understanding how people's heads work. We had a staff day during the summer at ROSPA, our head office in Birmingham, and we were doing all these different sort of games, and our team does work well together, the wider ROSPA team, but we're doing this, and there was a Tetris based, you know, how many shapes can you put together in a particular space? Well, my head doesn't work that way, but the other people on the team, their heads do. So now I understand how to work better with them, because it was like, no, if we do it this way, this is going to work, you know. So it was about me feeling initially a bit frustrated, as like, because I couldn't do it quick enough, because I like to do things quickly. But then I said, I know exactly how to work with this team now. You know,
yes.
Before, but I know exactly how to do it, because I could see as we went through these challenges that were good fun, that there was some very sort of clean lines of how I could do things differently to potentiate the work that we do, because that's what our work is all about. You know, we're looking at how we could potentiate the difference that we make. So understanding things from other people's point of view.
One of the challenges I said to people is, actually put up your hand if you think you are a left brainer, put up your hand if you think you're more of a right brainer, and actually get together with those people, because, you know, it shouldn't be about changing who you are. It's about being open to how we work with one another, which is what this is all about. And actually, if we can bring those two sides together, that is immensely powerful. And that's when we start bringing true value to our organizations through everything that we do. But we've got to get used to the fact that it's okay to change your mind about something. It's okay for something not to go according to plan, because actually if we over plan, we miss opportunities. And you know, this group of people and what we're doing in OneWIsh by bringing all of these networks together is allowing us to have those conversations, which is, you know, we're not over planning.
I think if I can, I think you're right, Louise. Louise and I don't always see eye to eye, so we love the banter, okay? And I think we're moving the needle. On the other hand, though, if the actual business where we're working in, and any of us are working in, is not ready for us to open up and be ourselves, I think we can help the business move on. We can move the needle, but we also need to be aware of that as well, because, you know, we can't go too far. If the business is going to turn around and say, oh, that person's speaking their mind all the time, it's not working, because the culture's not ready, and not all business cultures are ready. So I think we also need to be business savvy, because psychological safety at the end of the day for me is not it's all about business culture as well. It's ethics, it's human rights, it's DE&I. It's from a safety point of view. I mean, one of the first things that we should be making sure is that people, for example, feel comfortable to stop a machine or to be able to report when something's not right. I mean, they're the basics as health and safety professionals we've got to do, even if the company itself is not as advanced as we would hope them to be. But what we're going to do together, because we're stronger together, Louise, we're going to move that needle.
Yeah,
we're going to move this forward, and through this program we'll do it.
Yeah, it's definitely about it's about self-awareness and self-awareness in respect of your organization. So we talk a lot about maturity cycles. So I think in health and safety, we're used to, and somebody else said about the negatives, we're used to making these massive long lists of everything that's wrong. And so, you know, this is about actually some things can wait. Yeah. And it's starting from where you are now and, you know, building on that step by step, but keep moving forward. It's not, you know, you can't go from A to Z in one leap. You know, it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes perseverance, and it takes networks of people.
You know, we're so aligned. Sorry, Anne, let me just jump in, because I've got to get this out. I'm burning to say it is all about just being the hummingbird, but one conversation at a time, isn't it, Louise?
Yeah, but can I also say that you know, you're talking about culture and workplace culture, psychologically safe workplaces. Many of us don't know how to feel safe because we've got trauma in a background, and actually the conversations have to start with, do you know how to feel safe in yourself? Because you can't be safe in a workplace culture unless you know how to feel safe in yourself, and that is a skill that many of us haven't been taught. It's connecting with our emotions, connecting with our own, you know, experiences. So, you know, the cultural thing I get is brilliant, and the organisations, you know, put, you know, the Fresh Fruit Fridays and all those sort of things, they're like sticking plasters. It's about getting people to understand themselves first, and then how they interact with the teams. And that's something we really don't put much effort into or skills into.
And I think you're perfectly right. If I can, I think a lot of companies struggle with that because they're still on a journey.
It's hard.
And it is. And we're not all the companies are not on the same place on that journey. Okay. But what we're trying to do with this program as well, and through OneWISH, Rosper, and L'Oreal, is give you a psychological safe space. So with the people that you're doing this program with the mentors, to try and give you that space, because it is needed. I totally agree with you, but not all companies, and there's a lot of companies out there, should I say, that are not mature enough to be able to do that yet. But it will happen, right? We're all on that journey towards that kind of level of maturity, but it'll take a long time. But at least I think this the cohort that you're in, Anne, along with Nikki, etc., hopefully it'll give you that space. Hopefully that was the idea as well. So fingers crossed.
So I know we're overrunning a little bit, but there is a question that's been asked by Nikki in practical terms, and I think, Anne, you would be ideally placed to support, to kick off on this. In practical terms, how can companies make people understand themselves first? So we're all about person-centered approach. The program's about people, about making people more visible and more connected, which we've demonstrated beautifully this morning. What are your thoughts about in practical terms, what can companies do?
I'm going to be a bit of a stickler here. It's my health and safety background, but the term "make" is a very push term, and that is the type of language that we need to think about. So I'm sorry, I'm not being pedantic there, but that is a very push statement, isn't it? Make somebody do something. It's about helping them and supporting them to understand themselves, and it's creating psychologically safe spaces where we can have these conversations, but using like strong language like "make." And I know you might think the word "make" is a strong word, but it is, because it's actually saying, I'm telling you the shoulds. If we cut "should" out of our conversations, that would make an awful lot of people feel psychologically safe.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much indeed. I'm conscious that everybody's got other things to be cracking on with today. I'm absolutely delighted with how the session has gone. I knew it was going to be great. And I know that lots of people who listen to it are really going to benefit from it. I'm hoping that we will unearth some more mentors for the programme, so we can have more people engaged with the programme as time progresses. So please do get in touch. I'd just like to thank Anne, Catherine, Danny, Nikki, Malcolm and Louise for your support this morning, and looking forward to next steps.
Bye, everybody.
Bye and thanks.